Mike Lee is a saxophonist, composer, and educator who's been a key figure in New York City and northern New Jersey in the jazz scenes for many years. Originally from Cleveland, Ohio, he's performed with legendary ensembles such as the Steve Turre Sextet, Dizzy Gillespie Orchestra, and the Roy Hargrove Big Band. He appears regularly at top venues like the Blue Note, Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, and Smalls while touring internationally. In addition to his performing, he's also a dedicated educator, serving as professor of jazz saxophone at Montclair State University, and plays a vital role in developing Jazz House Kids educational programs. So, Mike, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Great to see you, Abe.
So, Mike, Montclair is really changed in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years. The program has become, sort of at the top level for jazz programs in the country.
Yeah.
Really, really has changed. So talk to me about getting involved with them, because it really is such an amazing program now.
Sure. Well, about, 12 years ago, it's funny, I had never really pursued teaching at the collegiate level. I mean, I think most jazz musicians now would like that supplemental income of, an adjunct professorship is not a full-time job. It's not it doesn't mean you can stop gigging or anything like that, but it's something I always wanted to do. And that was the year I actually submitted a formal application to a couple of venues that weren't in the New York area. I was like, my family was still fairly young, and I was like, let me try to get this going. And neither of those applications worked out. But then I got a phone call from the previous head of the department, a gentleman named Jeff Kunkel, asked me to join the faculty, and I was really glad to do so. And I think at that time when I first joined, we've always had wonderful students, and at that point, because of Montclair State's reputation as a great teachers college, that our ed majors were sometimes, oddly enough, stronger players than our jazz performance majors. And the emphasis under Jeff was really, on nurturing people that were becoming teachers, and we had a lot of freedom to teach how we wanted to teach. And I've always had an enjoyment of teaching and a kind of knack for it. So it was going very well. And then a couple of years into it, he wanted to hire a pianist, and Dave Strike and I were advocated really strongly to bring Oscar Perez on board. And Oscar, just immediately made an impact on the program. I mean, he immediately had a job as in charge of recruiting and he was setting up festivals where we bring in local high schools to come in, and so he really already started to make his impact. And then when Jeff stepped down a few years later, he was the obvious choice to replace him. And since Oscar has taken over.
What year did he become the head of the department? Just a ball?
Yeah, no, I know exactly when it was, because it was the pandemic. It was like fall of 2020.
Got it.
So we were still very much in the midst of it. And he just made a real strong point on recruiting and increasing the size. So I don't know the exact numbers. I mean, that would be something to get from him, but I think it's about tripled in size in terms of the jazz performance majors. When he came on, I was the only jazz saxophone teacher, and then we had Kevin Benny, who's a wonderful saxophonist, was teaching some of the ed majors and doing some things. But since then, we've added, almost immediately, we added Bruce Williams to the faculty, who's one of my favorite saxophonists and best friends, and greatest educators that I know, a brilliant saxophonist. So bringing him aboard was great. And then this year we even added Jason Marshall. So it keeps growing, and we've added Billy Hart and Alvester Garnett have come aboard as drummer. Yeah, it's just really, it's a completely different thing, and the school in general is getting bigger. We've had Wynton Marsalis and Christian McBride, and this year we have Pat Metheny coming in, and so
it's the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, it's like you have Rutgers, and then you have William Patterson, and now Montclair. It's like the jazz triangle of some of the best programs in the country.
Yeah, for sure. And being so close to New York City is great. It's funny because when I was a kid, like when I was in college, I wanted to move to New York, and I auditioned at William Patterson and Rutgers. Those were the two I knew about. I don't think Montclair State had any kind of a jazz program yet.
Yeah, I actually I auditioned to Willie P and uh and Rutgers. Yeah, so it's like I'm being from New Jersey, but now you know what I mean. It's just like whoa when you look back and think about it. It's got to feel really special. Let's talk about Cleveland for a second because Ohio is a really special state. There's so many great cities with their own individual jazz scenes,
Yeah.
and so strong. You know, Cincinnati and Cleveland, Toledo, Columbus. Like these are just So, talk to me about coming over to the East Coast and how everything sort of transpired.
Oh, yeah. The first time I moved, the first time I moved, I was like 21 years old, and I'd wanted to get to New York, from the time I started playing music. There's a great drummer who's now a professor at Oberlin, but he was here and he was really on the scene, named Paul Samuels, and he was one of my closest friends. And he came, I met him. He came back from New York, and I was playing at a club in Cleveland, and he was like, "When are you moving to New York?" And we just started talking about New York, and of course, as a saxophonist from Cleveland, Joe Lovano was my hero. So, spending some time with him, and then deciding to move up and study with him
Oh, you
was,
studied with Joe Lovano.
oh yeah, yeah, for a couple different times. Yeah, when I first moved, I kind of ostensibly was a student at NYU, but I was just doing that so my folks would help me out with rent. But I didn't stay very long, but I started studying with him there, and then we continued even after I wasn't a formal student. Yeah, and he's been a great teacher and mentor to me ever since, and I got to do some tours with him, and he's yeah.
Yes, So, when you studied with him, do you think that there were certain lessons you learned from him that you kind of bring into your own teaching now that are very clearly, oh, I got this from Joe because he changed the instrument in so many ways and with his bands and writing and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean every time I went to his place, most of the lessons he would play drums and we'd play duets, and then he'd stop and he'd make some comments and then he'd play some more. Um, yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of it, Joe's a very, very right brain person. He almost, I felt sometimes he was delivering information as like a Zen koan, like I'd have to go home and meditate on it. So when I'm teaching now, I think I've distilled a lot of what I came away with he was teaching me. Whether I had the right answer or not, it was my answer, and I help bring that to the students, and I hope to encourage the same type of inner discovery for them. You
Would you
know.
go hear him at the Vanguard a lot when you
Oh
were
yeah,
studying with him?
yeah, yeah. Like several nights, sure. Yeah, if he was there for a week, I was usually there for 3 or 4 nights. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, the recordings when he did that two for record with Mulgrew Miller and Lewis Hayes on one half, and then the other one was I think Tom Harrell and Billy Hart. Um, those were epic. They were really amazing.
But
We
did you ever go back to the Midwest at any point, or you were just once you were here
I
that was
did
it?
no, I did like I moved here when I was 21. I moved back when I was about 25 for several years. So like from 25 to 30, that's when I was really on the scene in Cleveland, and playing the jazz festivals, and you know trying to make a name for myself or whatever. And having been in New York, it was great because especially during the festival season, when people would come from New York to play in Cleveland, I would rekindle those connections.
Would you go to Akron?
Yeah, there was a few places. There's a pianist named Chip Stevens who I was really close with, and I think he was at the university. I think he was at University of Cincinnati with me. Initially I went to University of Cincinnati out of when I was 18, and he was down there for a second, but then I think he finished up in Ashland, or he was living in Akron. Anyway, so I remember going. There was a venue. I can't remember the name of it. We would
There's a
hang out.
great club there called Blue, and I know Blue
Oh
was
yeah. Well, that was. But this is 30 years before Blue opened up.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
prior. So
yeah,
you came back to New York when you were about 30 or so.
exactly. Yeah, that's when I stayed for good. Yeah.
What was the initial thinking that you were coming back? Was for teaching, that sort of thing, or just I need to get back there and there's nothing like it.
Oh no, I when I first moved home, it was just like so I was about 25 and I didn't feel like I had the time to shed. I mean, I was getting so much information and barred with so much music and I just needed, the initial plan was to go home for 6 months and just do a deep shed and come back. And,
6 months
but,
turns into 1 year, 1 year
yeah.
turns into two.
Well, and I met my wife, and
Oh,
so,
okay. Yeah.
she was finishing her degree, and so
Is she
yeah,
in the arts also?
she's a violinist, yeah,
Ah,
yeah, she's a wonderful violinist, and yeah, she was finishing up at Oberlin, I think, when I first met her, and then she did like an artist diploma at Cleveland Institute of Music, and then when she was done with that, I was like, well, I'm going back, and I think we were already married at the time, but. And so we joke, but I don't know how much of a joke it was. I kind of dragged her kicking and screaming to New York, but
well, yeah, I mean, you're obviously still married. I saw your wedding band and stuff, but
yeah,
it's some of the relationships between two musicians or two artists can be either very, very successful or they
yeah.
take a turn for the worse. You know what I mean?
Well, sure, and we were at that age where it was really, if we were going to have a family, it was time to start a family, and that in my mind didn't coincide with being able to, make $30 gigs till 3 in the morning in New York City, and put all the time and effort.
You
It,
say $30 and people might think you're exaggerating, but that, was the case for, I'm sure,
oh
30.
yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, there were the best paying gigs were in New York too, but you know, the way to get those is to be on the scene and just playing whatever gigs you can, and yeah, so it was, but it worked out. We found a great community in a building. There's a bass player named Bill Mooring who coincidentally is my colleague at Montclair State. Great bassist, and he was also I'd already lived in an apartment my first stint in New York across from him, and he told us I went to play a jam session at his place, and it was just a building filled with musicians, and the place above him was for sale, so we bought that place. That really changed the dynamic because that first year in New York,
Well,
Rebecca's not
you
like.
said it was an apartment full of musicians. Who was there? Like,
Let's see. Bill Mobley was on the ground floor at the time. Rudy Petschauer, great drummer, lived there, and I think John Goldsby still owned the place, but he had already moved to Europe. And a couple of friends of mine ended up moving in and buying places. Matt Ray, great pianist, and Chris Berger.
oh yeah, I know Chris.
Yeah, Chris is here in Jersey. Chris is one of my favorite musicians in the
He's the
world.
man. He's such a great
Oh,
guy.
he's the best. So yeah, we got him in the place across the hall. So it was really a network of friends and musicians, and especially Bill Mobley and his wife and Bill Mooring already had children. So suddenly the idea of trying to have children and do this thing wasn't didn't seem impossible anymore. And so it really.
Everything sort of clicked, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And my son Julian was born shortly after we moved into that building, and and then when he was about 3, we moved out to Jersey. But that time in Brooklyn was really special, and that was, yeah, it was a great opportunity, a great scene for us.
Yeah, like you could just go downstairs and play jam sessions, like with.
All the time, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
was playing a jam session on the. Rebecca went into, she was in the labor, and she was like, "I'm not ready yet." So the guys were playing a jam session across the hall, so like 1 in the morning. So she's like, "No, go play." So I remember
that's a
the night,
trip. That's a
yeah,
trip.
the night he was born. I was jamming across the hall.
Do
I
you
should have been
remember?
sleeping though.
Do you remember your first, when, not the first time, but the second time you came back to New York, do you remember the first jazz gig you did? Like, because I would imagine, like,
Mm.
it feels good, but you're like, it takes a second to get back into that mindset after, being in the shedding for, those years. Like, do you remember where
Yeah.
you played and stuff, or is that, we going back to?
No, I remember meeting Donnie McCaslin. I was playing a gig with Matt Wilson, I think. There was a place called the Angry Squire that then became the Squire, and I think I had an in there. I was playing some gigs there. I played with Elliot Zigman's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
quartet.
Hmm.
I remember, yeah, that was definitely that first year. I guess it was '93.
93.
Yeah, and then I started to sub in the Vanguard Orchestra around then. That was pretty special. Yeah, I mean, some of the fun gigs were just like playing 55 bar with my own band.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? You don't have
I'll
to
be
answer.
I'm 61. Be
No
60.
way.
Yeah, yes, sir. That shock is it's very very appreciated.
I thought you were in your like early 40s.
Oh man. Well, but do you know Julian? You know my son Julian, the
No,
saxophonist? Oh,
maybe. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he's about to turn 30.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm almost 38.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought
No,
you
I
were
know you're
much
like.
young.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, I think it's immaturity mostly.
Well, no, it's so fun. Like you're not the only one. There's a couple people, and like everyone's gonna think I'm like, like this is just like me being nice, but like I'm being dead serious. Some people like I think they're much younger than they are, and it's just the way, it has nothing to do with it's just the way they look. They just look much younger, but that means that their life in this music has kept them that way. They're not bringing the stressors that come into because stress ages people.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say I'm leading a stress-free life, but it doesn't feel that way. But I do, I think after a great gig, I feel like it's a chemical thing. Like I get up the next morning and I just feel better. I'm freer. My body feels better. You know, my digestion is better. My headset's better. Just feel like I can move faster. Like this right now, I'm in a 2 week stretch of this is obvious, definitely the busiest 2 weeks in February I've ever had. I'm
That's
playing a lot
awesome.
of great gigs with great players, and there's just a vibration that happens when when you're playing music. It's just,
No,
and
I
I
agree with you.
I think that helps, not age us quite as quick.
Well, after I play a trio gig, I go home, I eat something like one of my favorite foods. I'm out. I sleep like a rock, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I just because I don't really during the week, like I don't sleep, but like on the weekends I sleep great.
Yeah.
Just given the gigs.
Right.
So wow, no, that's so this is gonna bring us to something else, which is, you playing with the Vanguard Orchestra.
Mm.
Um, first gig, going in there. Do you remember walking down the stairs and were you nervous? Were you just like a ball of adrenaline? Was it surreal? Because it's the
Yeah.
best jazz club in the world.
Yeah. It was pretty scary. I think, which was definitely the exception and not the rule. I think they actually rehearsed that afternoon.
Oh,
So I
you
think
rehearsed before the gig.
I think I actually got to look at some of the music before hitting. One of the major challenges of that book is that the parts aren't necessarily all together. I mean, um, like the pages. I remember soloing on one of the first. I remember Kenny Werner was playing piano, and I was subbing for Rich Perry in the first tenor book, which is right in the crook of the piano, and we're playing. I wish I'm not gonna be able to remember the name of the tune right now, but a famous Thad Jones composition that goes to some different places. It's not just a bunch of 2-5-1s, and
Harmonically more complex and just.
yeah, and Richie had the book memorized, so he didn't care. That the top of a page was like missing a third of the page. But so I'm playing the solo. I'm reading down to the bottom of the page. I go up, and that's not the next measure. And so I'm just there free, just playing by ear and just like whatever happens, happens.
But was
And
that when you were just because not to say you were playing by ear doesn't mean you're lost or anything, but like it's like
oh, I
not.
was lost. I mean, there's no question. I didn't. I had actually checked out that tune a little bit, but I wish I could. The story would be a lot better if I had the information. I can't
Well, no,
remember,
no.
but
I'm
it
just
was.
what I want to ask you was like because I've had that happen to me like one time like at this really great jazz club, and I felt like it was the end of the world at that in that moment.
Yeah.
I don't know, like were you like did that affect you emotionally, or you're just like whatever, it's
Yeah, but I think I had the right response. I just got pissed. I was just like,
oh, okay.
I haven't spent my whole life trying to get to the Village Vanguard and gonna fold now. Like, no effing way. I'm going. And as soon as that happened, I started to play different. And I remember Kenny Warner just like looked up and he just started, feeding me all these chords.
After that tune, you mean like you were like it was more like you were
No,
going.
that during that tune.
Oh, during the tune.
During that tune, just I was like, I'm gonna play the best stuff I can play, and Kenny Warner, with his amazing ears and just unbelievable musical presence, was like locked into what I was doing, and afterwards he gave me a big hug, and it was like it was a real confirmation, and that's I mean I keep forgetting that lesson and then relearning it because people who know my education know me as like the 251 guy, like licks and 12 keys. You got to know all your stuff, do all your homework. And yet, the opposite of that is these moments happen where all your preparation isn't helping. I'll give you an example. Like just this past December, so about 2 months ago, I played at Smalls with the Frank Lacey Sextet, and Frank.
Great trombonist, people don't.
Oh yeah, but in that band he plays trumpet.
Oh, okay.
Do you know Brian Simitachi?
No,
So
no.
in that band, Brian Simitachi plays trombone. Great,
Okay, got because
great
I think
Jersey.
he used to play trombone in it though.
Yeah, I mean he still does occasionally, but this current version of the band, he has a trombone in it and he plays trumpet.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So we're, this, I was my students were getting it from all sides that like if they weren't prepared, I was like I'm leaving here to go play with Frank Lacey at Smalls, and he sent us the tunes 2 days ago, and it was this Mulgrew Miller tunes and James Williams tunes, and one of Frank's tunes, which might have been the best one of them all. All this music from his period of being with the Messengers. So he sent all this music, but all he did is send YouTube links. We're all transcribing the parts. We got 48 hours to learn 8 tunes, and they're complicated tunes. We're doing our homework, and we get there, and of course, not everyone's there, and we end up not really rehearsing. Maybe doing a sound check for 20 minutes or something. But we kind of had an idea of what we were doing, and then at last I go, oh, I want to play On the Ginza, and I love that tune. I've heard it on the record 1,000 times, but I've never really thought about what the changes are or what's going on in it. And so, of course, I know that one is the tune that he's going to have me solo first on because he gives me the part and there's no changes. So it was a similar thing. It was just like, I don't care. I'm trained for this. I'm born for this. It's at Smalls. What do? You're gonna like shrink at Smalls? It's just like, no, just get mad and do the thing. And like I listened to that one and then I played the solo again in the second set after I had a chance to listen to the changes, and I think I was more inside the changes when I was just open, when I was just coming from that other place, the non-intellectual place.
No, but I think it's such a good point that you're making too, that no matter the preparation, this is just the stuff that happens sometimes, and you just have to run with it.
Yeah,
It doesn't, and even if you think it's gonna be what it is, these are you just got to be ready. But that's where you're talking about playing all in all the keys, all the 12 keys. I'm sure
yeah,
playing through all the stuff and all the different cycles, whatnot. You're just you're an athlete who's just ready to go on the basketball court
right,
because you've done the reps, that sort of
right,
thing.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, what's Charlie Parker's famous quote is, "Learn your instrument, learn the music, then forget all that and just blow." And sometimes I'm thankful for those moments that that you just said they suddenly like I would never do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Go like I would never if I was there. Like Frank said, hey, come sit in on this tune. I would have been like, no, but I'm on the gig. It's like you better. So those moments cause you to find another gear, find another place.
No, Mike, this has been great. Thanks so much for your time. And, those were some awesome stories too. I'm sure, people will really, really appreciate the honesty about them too. Especially, that great stuff. So thanks so much for doing this.
Well, thanks for doing. I know you're putting your heart and soul into this project, and it's for you have over 100 of these now, right?
You'll be 113.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thanks,
This is
man.
great,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Just keep following it wherever it takes you. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.